Matthew, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, tell us a little about yourself. I mean, the only things I know about you is you're running for Congress and you love cryptocurrency. Okay, that's what I know. Tell us a little bit more.
All right, so my name is Matthew Diemer. I'm running for Congress in Northeast Ohio. The current district is Ohio's 13th district. Born and raised Northeast Ohio in a place called Slavic Village in a place in Cleveland, Ohio. Moved around quite a bit to different places around Ohio, and went to school in Hawaii, went to the University of Hawaii, where I graduated with a degree in political science. Got a full scholarship to study Chinese. So I'm fluent in Chinese, reading, writing, speaking. Studied at Beijing University. Lived in China for about 15 years, where I was at an executive level, in the executive level of hospitality over there. Got a full scholarship for my MBA, which I did in Taiwan. Then I went to, while I was doing my MBA in Taiwan, I started a small media company called Crypto 101, which I got into crypto, started educating people in the crypto space. I sold that business to a company in San Diego, where that took me back to the stateside. And now I'm back in Northeast Ohio, doing a daily crypto news show for Decrypt Media. It's called the Decrypt Daily. And I am running for Congress over here.
That is really awesome. So a lot of things to get into here. But first and foremost, I mean, there's a lot of people that are, love crypto. And it could be attributed to shiny objectitis. It's sexy, it's new, it's exciting, right? But anyone who spends any more time with it like you have for several years and actually builds businesses around it, it's a little deeper than that. What do you like about crypto?
Well, I always like, first of all, I'm a Trekkie. And so anything with emerging tech or sci-fi or things that are trying to break down barriers or new things, I'm always trying to look into. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, there's a couple of things that are really fundamental to me. One, I really like the aspect of controlling your own wealth. I like the investment aspect of it. I also like the tech aspect of it, the different things they're trying to do to empower people, bank the unbanked, give people a financial access to the same tools that say any people with high net worth would have, and try to get that to everybody, democratize that. And so there's just different things that are coming out of the crypto space that are just great technologies to solve real world problems. A couple other things I would like to mention is identity on the blockchain, which is going to help you control your data, control your identity in the digital world, and also voting. Voting is a big thing. And I think blockchain technology is a huge way to create transparency, create an auditable source where anybody can audit elections and give everybody secure voting. So we can never have any question of what happened. And I'm not saying that I'm not denying that there was any problems with our current election, but if there is any question, I think that there are technologies out there so we can make it easier, more accessible, and better for everybody.
Now, what I didn't hear you say is how you become a millionaire overnight with crypto, which is interesting. Which means again, you're going a little deeper on crypto than the average, CNN headline news, whatever junkie. But I do want to talk about the financial aspect of it. You mentioned a couple non-financial aspects per se, the technology, which I think Garrett and I want to understand that as well. But the question is, to what extent is crypto an investment vehicle? And if so, how do you best use it? Where does it fit in a portfolio? What can it do for us?
Well, I think there's two current ways that we should be looking at crypto and investments. And obviously, there's the talk about number go up, get rich, millionaires overnight, and so on and so forth, which there's plenty of those. But I think that there's two things right now that we have to start looking at. And the first one is how to protect your worth, your net worth. We have inflation, and we saw 7.5% here in the United States, 5.5% in the UK. So if you didn't get a 5.5% raise, at least you were making less money. 7.5% in the United States, less than you were last year. So what are some vehicles that you could do to protect your wealth or have a store of value? You guys deal with real estate. So real estate obviously is booming. Even used cars might have been good in the past year. But Bitcoin cryptocurrency is also a way to do that. And the other one thing is we are seeing a interesting time right now, especially when you see the different laws that are coming or emergency acts that are coming out of Canada. If you have wealth, if you have it stored somewhere, how do you make sure that there's not a run on the bank, or you control it, or to make sure that it doesn't get shut down, or there aren't ways to, maybe just keep you out of your money? And Bitcoin solves those two things. So as much as you want to, we're talking about, number go up and creating wealth, but there's also the storing your wealth, getting ahead of inflation, and making sure that you are the only sole person that's in control of your money.
All right, let me challenge that a little bit, Matthew, because we're obviously in an inflation environment, 7.5 to 10% based on depending on what index. Yet Bitcoin is down. I don't know the exact number in front of me, but like 30% since its high last year. So if it's really a hedge against inflation, it should have been up at least 7.5%, and it's down 30. So the gap is more like 37%. So I don't understand how it's a hedge against inflation.
Well, if you look at this time last year, it's pretty much the same price as last year. But if we're looking at a larger time span, if we looked at, say, over the past, let's call it the last all-time high, which was nearly $20,000. If we're sitting at $40,000 today, that is up 100% over the past 3 years or so, 3.5 years. So we're talking about 33% year over year. If you're looking at larger timeframes, then we are looking at definitely making up that 7.5 to 10% that you said.
So the other thing you said is, you're kind of outside the government's control, but see what's going on in Canada right now, right? Where they're freezing crypto assets from these truckers. Like, what is going on with that? And of course, China's been doing this for a long time. So, is it a little naive to think that crypto is now floating without regulation, at least forever?
I think that you bring up a really good point there. And, you saw this different CEOs from either Kraken, his name is Jesse Powell, and Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, that said, look, we operate within the regulations of these governments. If it's Canada, the United States, or whatever, if they tell us to freeze your assets on these exchanges, your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your Litecoin, or what have you, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to abide. This is the agreement that we made with the government. This is why in their tweets, they said, take it off our exchanges and make sure you're self-custodian. Put it in your wallet. So therefore, if you wanted to transact your Bitcoin, you can go peer to peer, me to you. The government cannot control that.
Yeah. So one thing, Matt, that always comes up is like, okay, well, you've got all these coins, you've got different uses. Obviously, you see that there's something there, but it's kind of almost like when they invented electricity. Like there were all these different products on the market and 90% of them went away. So my question to you is, what do you see sticking around long-term in crypto? And what types of iterations of crypto do you see that probably won't be around in the next, 20, 30 years?
That's a really good question. If this was 4 years ago, I would probably say all kinds of different things. Right now, I say Bitcoin. It's a very good, from what I say, if we're not talking about short-term timeframes, longer timeframes, a store of value, and also protection of wealth when you talk about peer-to-peer, like we just said. But when it comes to the other things, I think that it would be very arrogant to say that we've got it figured out. Even in the NFT space, people are talking, or trying to make different things, test out technologies. If we're talking about like back in, I guess the old web days back in the early 90s, we had chat rooms, in AOL, they would send you discs and you had 10,000 free hours. And if we thought that was the pinnacle of the internet, is getting 10,000 free hours discs sent to you in the mail, then we would have been so very, very wrong. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do just like anything. We're going to mature in the space. They're testing out technologies. They're testing out what's going to be good at the market. People who are testing out how they're going to use it. Different companies are coming in to figure out how they want to use it for their products, for their customers, and so on and so forth. So I don't know what's going to stick around. I think that if this is an investment idea, and obviously I don't give investment advice, but just looking at the old markets, if you put money in AOL, you would have won if you got at a certain point, and you would have lost big if you didn't. If you got into Netscape, you would have won at a certain point, and you would have lost big if you didn't. So right now you can win, I think, short term with about anything. But if you're talking about long term, who knows?
This is a good point. And this is what puzzles me about crypto as an investment is I can't explain how it's valued, the fundamental value that drives a price up or price down. I can do it in an apartment building. I can do it on real estate. I can do it in a stock to some degree, even though the market swings things wildly sometimes in and out of where it should be. But to me, it's in my mind, it's just pure speculation. And I'm being told that, well, there's a finite amount of Bitcoin, but I can create a coin, as many different kinds of coins all day long. So I can take stuff out of Bitcoin and then put it in some other coin like Ethereum or anything else that you invent later on. So help me understand how Bitcoin is valued. Is it actually pure speculation, or is there a little bit more of a supply and demand? Is there more of an economic factor involved there?
I think you just said it, it's supply and demand. And so if you can't control the supply and you can't put more supply into the system and the demand stays either constant or goes up, then you are going to have a higher price. And that's with anything. If you're not making more houses, if Pulte doesn't start building more, development complexes around, then there's going to be the price of houses are going to go for a lot more than they are. So it's the same principle with Bitcoin or any of these other cryptocurrencies with a finite supply. But Bitcoin is one that we are looking at right now. And you can transfer that to NFTs as well. NFTs are creating a digital signature of a certain digital item on the blockchain. So say if there's one of this, there's only going to be one of this. And so you have a finite supply. And then of course, there's people going to pay for it, what they are going to pay for it. And that's just it. But other things, yeah, of course, there's speculation, just like with everything. How much is Tesla really worth? Who knows? Do they really make as much cars or as much profit as Toyota or Ford? I don't know about that as well. However, people are willing to buy into Tesla and make it a $1 trillion company because of the potential in the future, which is a little bit of speculation. And I think people are looking at the cryptocurrency space or crypto or digital or Web3 or metaverse. They're kind of the same way. They're kind of betting on the future.
Right. Okay. So for me, as the average human, we can buy cryptocurrency going on exchange. It's relatively easy to do. Now, what about NFTs? Why should I care about NFTs? Yeah, the name is floating around, and like you said, I can digitally encode this thing, my teddy bear in the corner, and so there's only one of those. But so what? In other words, why should the average person care about NFTs? What is the potential there with that kind of technology?
But let's look at two different kind of things what we're talking about when it comes to NFTs. And first, what is NFTs, or what are NFTs? NFTs are a digital representation of either a physical item or a digital item. There's no more to be made, and that creates the limit, the supply, the finite of that item. So let's turn it into, say, good example. The other day, somebody bought a Banksy, bought it for $100,000, took high resolution digital pictures of it, and on air, on YouTube, live streamed them burning it. But then they turned it into an NFT. So if there's only one of those Banksies now, the physical's gone, and the only other Banksy lives in that digital, is it worth something? I guess that's up to you, right? Now you have a Banksy in the digital, the only one, physical's gone, it's burned live on YouTube. You have that Banksy. Is it worth something? Now let's turn it into an NFT with that one item being, and just talk about like maybe day-to-day things in the things that we do every day. What about your driver's license? You have your physical card there, but let's say if you want to prove your ID in the digital, is there a way to digitize your driver's license and use it across, platforms in everyday use cases? What about your diploma? Can people just say, can anybody just make a little sheet of paper, hang it on their wall and say, I've been to Harvard? Or is there a way to do it in the digital that says, hey, no, Harvard minted this diploma NFT and it is assigned to Matthew. There's only one of them because there's only one Matthew that went to Harvard that graduated at a certain time with a certain GPA. And now we have that. So NFT is like I said, a technology. And let's go back to the analogy we said on the 1990s internet. They're trying out the technology, but there is definitely real use cases to figure out how to place it within our current, just day-to-day lives. And that's what I think the NFTs are doing right now.
Yeah, so this is another really crazy use case that I learned about, but kids play these video games, or adults even play video games, and they have the opportunity to buy things inside the game that make their player more ahead of the other ones, or whatever that situation is. Well, who owns that when they pay the money to the game? Who owns it? Well, the game, the company owns it, right? So they own everything. Now, let's say that game goes obsolete online or crashes or whatever. All that money that you just spent, and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on products inside that game, that just disappears. And you just lost that money and the game is obsolete. Well, with NFTs, you can actually purchase the items and own them yourselves. And then other games are taking them and they're saying, hey, you can use that item in our game. And you actually own the item digitally and you can use it between different games and it's actually worth something and you can auction it off later. So that's like another use that you just think about the different parallels that can exist in that kind of a use case. It's monstrous because it allows you to take ownership of items that, you in the past didn't even have the ability to, which is crazy.
Matthew, what are some of the other use cases that you're seeing? That's a if you're in the gaming world, I think that would be useful. But what are some other uses that you're seeing? You said they're kind of becoming more mainstream in culture. What else are you seeing out there?
Well, let's just go to the news the other day. So many, just this year alone, so many different companies are actually making trademarks for Web3, metaverse, and probably a lot of these different things are going to be in NFT forms. For example, Victoria's Secret, they applied for a trademark. Ralph Lauren, DKNY, Abercrombie and Fitch, Nike. Nike is not only has a trademark out there for their digital shoes, they're suing people who made digital Nikes before because people are selling these digital Nike NFTs, owning these digital Air Jordans. And Nike's like, wait a second. I guess, first of all, there's a value to this. And second of all, it's my trademark. And two, the third, maybe we can go to these metaverse, these digital lands. And like Garrett just said, people are playing games. Maybe they just want a pair of Air Jordans in the digital. We'll pay $500 for it and make sure that, I own those Air Jordans. And we can go back to like other things like NBA Top Shots and NFL trading cards as well. When we were kids, we were buying ProMark and we're buying tops and we're having big boxes of those. And, mom probably said, why are you asking me for $5 more to buy these stupid cards that aren't going to be worth anything? Well, they were worth something, Ma. And now they're doing it in the digital and they might be worth something too.
Matthew, what about digital real estate? So
good one.
NFTs real estate essentially is what that is. Talk to us about what you're seeing with that and what you think is really going to stick around in that space. Cause that's a really cool one.
That is a really interesting one. I think somebody just paid a couple million for a land next to Snoop's digital house in some kind of I think it's Decentraland. I honestly don't quote me on that, but people are paying for this land in the metaverse, and so they can build their shops. For example, Chase Bank just built their Onyx Lounge the other day, where you can go chill with a digital tiger in their Chase Lounge in the metaverse. So you're going to see different shops like this pop up, and you're going to need places to do it. And where are you going to do it? Where people already have real estate. You want to move into a city where there's different things and things are, going around and shuffling around. And so when you see Snoop build a house, when you see Chase build a house or build a lounge, and these other companies build lounges and businesses with there, you're going to want to get that real estate there too. So it is becoming a thing. The thing that we have to keep an eye on, and I think if anybody wants to buy real estate, obviously this is an investment advice, but making sure that land is finite. How big and fast can this expand, and how much finite land do you buy with this value or NFT or what have you?
So we're talking about kind of digital land, which is interesting, right? Because in a digital world, I mean, I see even my kids, they're like, I want to buy that thing. I want to do this because I can do something tangibly in this digital world. So I can see that. But what about what impact do you see NFTs or blockchain having on actual tangible real estate, trading real estate or anything like that? What are you seeing the potential there?
Well, I think that what we're going to see now, there's the digital and there's the physical digital. And I think there's let's call it metaphysical, just to get all out there, right? I talked about the opportunity for the crypto space and these kind of products that are coming out to give opportunity to different peoples. And one thing that I'm really passionate about is the place that I grew up in, Slavic Village, which I mentioned earlier, the average home price there is $39,000. That prices them out of a lot of different things. They can't go to a bank and say, hey, I want home equity on the $15,000 in equity that I've been paying off my house. And maybe their income is of modest needs. Now with an NFT, maybe you can tokenize or put your house deed in an NFT. You can use your NFT or that NFT, because it's only one house, what have you, as collateral in a DeFi space. Now in that DeFi space, decentralized finance, you can get people to use that home deed as collateral to do different things. Maybe you want education loans, home improvement loans, maybe whatever, an advance on whatever you need. But now we're moving this physical into the digital as well. And so I think that there's more of a bridge. There's obviously people living in the digital, which is going to be its own market. There's obviously people that are there, but there's also going to be this bridge between the physical and the digital that I think that's going to be also a very big wealth allocator and also a wealth creator.
So basically, Michael, and I've actually seen companies that have done this, but they'll take a situation where they'll make a token essentially for your LP investment, let's say, and that token, is technically you could use that and trade it with someone if you want to, trade your share or something like that. Now, I don't think it's been adopted quite yet, and because there's not really a huge marketplace for that kind of secondary trades on, in regards to LP units and shares like that. But I have seen companies that have done stuff like that in this space. And that is, a viable use for this technology in the future. And I think it really goes back to one word, which is adoption. And as the technology evolves, we're seeing different iterations of it, different things. It's getting cooler and cooler along the way. We're like, whoa, this NFT thing, back in 2017, when I was really getting involved in it, it was like this whole fad of ICOs, initial coin offerings, right? And then that kind of ended up being a lot of scams and stuff like that. So now it's evolved, and the new hot thing is like NFTs. But what we're really trying to get to is adoption in society. And my question for you, Matthew, is how long do you think it's going to take before this is like fully adopted in society in your mind? Are we looking at a decade, or is it less than that? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think that's a really good question. Let me just go back to other kind of adoptions I've seen. I have seen tokenized crowdsourced real estate. So I've seen real estate being bought up. I think I know a company in Portugal that puts their real estate and their, like, for example, rental properties on a token. You can invest into the rental properties, which gives them cash flow to make more rental properties, yet you get paid out on the profits that are made off the rents that are already there. So what they're doing is globally crowdsourcing and basically trying to break down the barriers of, say, financial institutions within, say, country by country, if it's Portugal or Spain or the US to Canada, and making a more global system of being able to invest in different spaces. Now, obviously, there's going to be regulation to come out and look at this once it becomes more popular. And this goes to your question, when do we see that this kind of adoption is going to happen? And I think that it's going to take a long time, because we're going to have to go through a couple evolutions. The first one is going to be regulatory evolutions. What does regulations mean? How is it going to be regulated? What's going to be right now we're actually introducing bills to make sure that cryptocurrency exchanges abide by the travel rule. And the travel rule means that if I have cryptocurrencies and I did KYC on, say, my exchange, know your customer, on my exchange, say it's Coinbase, and I send my cryptocurrency to another exchange, it's called Binance, that KYC gets traveled and they know whose cryptocurrency is, and everybody has the same records of who is what. And so we need to have I'm not saying that we need to, but one thing they're looking at is that kind of standard regulation. So we need to go through standard regulations. We're going to have to make it global, because this is going to be a global product. And there's going to be, in my opinion, there's going to be the Bitcoin to CBDC war. And what does that mean? Or stablecoin Bitcoin CBDC war. And the CBDC means central bank digital currency. And a lot of these countries right now are looking at central bank digital currencies because they saw the benefits of cryptocurrencies. So these developers and people that made Bitcoin or Litecoin or what have you, governments looked at this, in stablecoins, obviously. They looked at the not only the speed of transactions, the ability to do micropayments, the accessibility, plus the auditability and the transparency, and the ability to code in smart contracts and ways to use those currencies. And the government's like, maybe we should be going that way. And so the Fed is looking at a CBDC. China obviously is rolling out their CBDC. India has announced that they're going to do a central bank digital currency. And obviously the EU is looking at this as well. And so I think that we're going to come to a point where we're going to be looking at, are stable coins going to be there? Are they going to be legal? Is the government going to have their own cryptocurrency? And how does Bitcoin kind of fit into this and facilitate this? Or is it going to be a store of value, kind of like a digital gold, and they're just kind of going to leave it alone? That's going to be a huge conversation.
And let me cut Matthew real quick. So stable coins, guys, for those that are listening, those are coins basically that they don't fluctuate in value too much. So like Tether, things like USDT, right? So those things, that's what a stable coin is, versus Bitcoin would not be considered that, because it goes up and down in price.
Exactly. And so a stable coin is something that's backed to like a certain currency. So you could have a USD stable coin. And so it's supposed to have, $1 backing $1 of the stable coin. And one thing that they're trying to work out in regulations is do they actually have that backing of $1 to $1 in stable coin? Things that we have to work out with any new technology. And so once you have, private companies competing with the US dollar, the Fed and the US government is going to come in. And so I just want to close this up and go full circle. all these different things that we're talking about when it comes to decentralized finance and NFTs and the different kind of ideas of what the future and the this whole new kind of financial infrastructure and metaverse and Web3 it also can be powered by a CBDC, but that is going to be controlled by the Fed and by the government. Then it goes back to what we were talking about before. Is there a finite amount and what gives it value? And then we go back to fiat currency and how we have inflation now. So it is all full circle, but I think this is a conversation that's going to be worked out over, I think, honestly, decades, but we're starting that conversation right now. And why people like myself that are into this needs to go to Congress to make sure that we're making legislation and rules and regulations that not only support the private businesses, but also support this ecosystem and make sure that we're making common sense regulations so that we're not going to be just totally pulled one way or the other.
And that leads me to my next question is, why, Matthew, are you running for Congress? What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. Now, we just talked about cryptocurrencies for this whole time. And obviously, I'm not just running on only cryptocurrency or a Bitcoin platform, but that is definitely one thing I want to do. And let's just talk about innovation. I want to make sure that the United States is a place of and home for innovation. We got to stop, pushing people away. We have to start welcoming people to the United States and building companies. We got to be very more welcoming on entrepreneurs. We have to be welcoming on more new tech. We should be engaging with it in a different way. Also, I'm running on a platform that I want to make sure that we're making things here. Our supply chain issues is unacceptable. We got to be making things here. We can start pulling that back to the United States. And I want to make sure that we're having, these. Look, man, I come from Ohio. It's a Midwest state. If you're from a Midwest state, the drain that NAFTA put on our communities. All the factories that were here that aren't here anymore. The towns and communities that had bustling main streets and town centers that are now just has for rent signs on their shops, and we really want to fill those up. And I think that a really good way to do that is to look at this emerging tech. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is only one aspect of it, but biotech as well, green energy, green manufacturing, what we're producing in China, what we are producing outside of the country, what we need to have here, bring it all inside. Let's lift up these jobs again, get these communities back up, and let's fill those main streets back up. So this is all like a full circle of how do we think about, growing and encouraging entrepreneurship, creating opportunities and fueling this economy. And I think that we see all these things that are developing all over the place. And how do we make sure that it's here?
Man, I love that. I love hearing that. In general, just keeping things in the U.S. and building the economy up. I think definitely innovation always has to be in the forefront. I think I love everything you said. How can people reach you, Matthew?
Very easy. Go to diemerforcongress.com. That's DIEMER for Congress.com. You can find my information on there. You could also send me an email personally. It's Matthew, MATTHEW @diemerforcongress.com. I'd love to hear from everybody.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on our show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It was fun.